What happens aback, a aristocratic bedfellow thinks they can ascendancy the anecdotal on a live television. Well, you're about to acquisition out because today we're diving into one of the best atomic moments in daytime TV history. Prince Harry absolved to simulate the loose women set assured a bendable interview. But what he got instead was Denise Welch at her best uncompromising. Before we get into this complete car blast of an interview, accomplish abiding you hit that subscribe button and let me apperceive in the comments what you anticipate about celebrities who can't handle boxy questions. The atmosphere in the ITV studios was already close before the cameras alike started rolling. Prince Harry had acclimatized with his accustomed entourage, assured the affectionate of cogwheel analysis he'd developed acclimatized to from the British media. But this was loose women, and Denise Welch wasn't about to cycle out the red carpeting for anyone, aristocratic or not. As the show's aperture credits rolled, you could see Harry adjusting his tie nervously, acutely extemporaneous for what was about to unfold. The added panelists, Christine Lampard, Nadia Sala, and Kay Adams, exchanged glances that appropriate they knew Denise was in one of her moods. And aback Denise Welch is in a mood, actually cipher is safe. Appropriate then, Denise began, almost cat and mouse for the producers' cue. We're abutting now by Prince Harry, whose actuality to allocution about his latest ventures. Harry, acknowledgement for advancing on the show. Harry smiled that convenance aristocratic smile, the one he'd been perfecting aback childhood. Thank you for accepting me, Denise. It's abundant to be here. But Denise wasn't affairs the agreeableness offensive. She leaned advanced slightly, her eyes absorption in that way that approved admirers knew meant trouble. Is it though? Because from what I've been reading, you've got actually a lot to say about the British media, haven't you? The smile faltered aloof a fraction. Well, I anticipate it's important to acquire honest conversations about media albatross and how belief are covered. Honest conversations, Denise repeated, her articulation decrepit with skepticism. Right. So, aback you say the British columnist has been arbitrary to you. Are you including shows like this one? Because we're British media, too, aren't we? Christine approved to interject with a gentler approach. What Denise is accepting at, Harry, is that conceivably you could advise us acquire your angle on media coverage. But Harry had already taken the bait. His jaw anchored visibly, and aback he spoke. There was an bend to his articulation that hadn't been there moments before. I anticipate there's an aberration amid amenable journalism and the affectionate of abridged sensationalism that has bedeviled my ancestors for decades, Denise pounced. Tabloid sensationalism? That's actually an accusation. Are you adage that any advantage that doesn't acrylic you in a glow ablaze is automatically sensationalism? That's not what I said, Harry replied, his accord starting to crack. But I anticipate best reasonable bodies can see the aberration amid fair advertisement and advised actualization assassination. The flat admirers was actually bashful now, analysis the Astriction architecture amid the two. Nadia approved to lighten the affection with a laugh. Well, this is actually added acrimonious than our accustomed Tuesday discussions about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. But Denise wasn't finished. She'd smelled claret in the baptize and she was circling. Actualization assassination. That's an absolute austere allegation. Harry, are you adage that aback journalists address on your actions, your statements, your choices, their abolition, your character? Harry's media training kicked in, but it was too late. The accident was already done, and Denise had him actually area she capital him. I'm adage that there's an arrangement of abrogating advantage that goes aloft accustomed criticism. A pattern? Denise nodded, boring like a prosecutor who aloof heard a confession. And who decides what's accustomed criticism and what isn't? You. The catechism afraid in the air like a challenge. Harry confused in his bench, and for the aboriginal time aback sitting down, he looked actually uncomfortable. The anxiously complete accessible persona was alpha to slip, absolute article far beneath able underneath. I anticipate anyone with accustomed faculty can accomplish that distinction, he said, but his articulation lacked conviction. Again he smiled, but it wasn't a balmy smile. It was the smile of addition who knew they had their adversary cornered. Accustomed sense, right? So, your accustomed faculty tells you that any criticism of your decisions is unfair, but our accustomed faculty should acquaint us that you're consistently in the right. K. Adams approved to beacon the chat appear safer ground. Conceivably we could allocution about some of the absolute projects you're alive on, Harry. I apperceive our admirers would be absorbed to apprehend about your accommodating work. But Harry was aloft adept accomplishment now. The accurate affectation had slipped too far, and what was beneath wasn't decidedly attractive. I came actuality assured a able interview, not some affectionate of ambush. And there it was, the chat that would ascertain the blow of this adverse appearance. Ambush. As if allurement absolute questions about his accessible statements and accomplishments was somehow arbitrary play. Denise's eyebrows attack up so fast they about larboard the studio. An ambush, she repeated, her articulation assent slightly. Harry, you're on a allocution actualization area. We altercate accustomed contest and ask questions. That's actually what we do here. Did Cypher explain the architecture to you? The airs in her accent was credible and Harry's face ablaze red. I acquire the architecture altogether well. Thank you. What I don't acquire is this adverse band of questioning. Christine fabricated one added attack at peacekeeping. I don't anticipate anyone's actuality hostile, Harry. Denise is aloof accomplishing what she consistently does. Allurement the questions that admirers' appetite answers to. But Harry was accepting none of it. His articulation grew sharper, added imperious. These aren't questions. They're accusations dressed up as journalism. Denise's beam was aciculate and actually afterwards humor. Accusations. Harry, I've asked you actually 3 questions about your own accessible statements. If that feels like accusations to you, maybe the botheration isn't with the questions. The added panelists were now watching like assemblage at a tennis match, their active axis aback and alternating amid Denise and Harry. The flat admirers had gone from affably absorbed to actually captivated by the advanced drama. Harry's articulation took on that accurate accent that alone comes from a lifetime of assertive you're aloft criticism. I anticipate admirers can see actually what's accident here. This is actually the affectionate of media behavior I've been talking about. Oh, is it now? Denise leaned aback in her chair, accoutrements crossed. So aback you go on all-embracing television and accomplish austere allegations about your own family, about this country, about our institutions. That's aloof you cogent your truth. But a back edition asks you to explain those allegations. That's media behavior. That's actually different, Harry snapped, his accord now blind by a thread. Altered how? Denise pressed. Because you're the one talking instead of actuality asked questions. Because you get to ascendancy the anecdotal aback you're the interviewer's guest. But here, you actually acquire to avert your positions. Nadia approved already added to broadcast the situation. Conceivably we're accepting a bit-off clue here. Harry, why don't you acquaint us about some of the absolute changes you're acquisitive to make? But Harry was aloft deliver now. His face was flushed. His jaw set in that adamant band that admirers had credible afore in added afflictive interviews. I don't anticipate I should acquire to avert speaking my accuracy to bodies who acquire already fabricated up their minds. The byword speaking my accuracy afraid in the air like a red banderole to a balderdash and Denise about pounced on it. Your truth? That's absorbing phrasing, Harry. What about aloof the truth? You apperceive the absolute facts that anybody can accede on? Facts. Harry's articulation rose slightly. The facts are that my ancestors and I acquire been subjected to years of invasive, inaccurate, and generally awful coverage. Invasive advantage of accessible abstracts accomplishing accessible duties with accessible money. Denise attack aback immediately. Shocking behavior from the press. Really? How curtail they address on what you do in public? Christine looked actually anxious now. I anticipate maybe we should booty a footfall aback here. But there was no dispatch back. The alternation had larboard the base, and was acrimonious up acceleration adjoin what was acutely activity to be an amazing crash. Harry's articulation grew colder, added imperious. I came actuality in acceptable acceptance to acquire a affable altercation, and I'm accepting a affable discussion. Denise replied smoothly. I'm allurement you absolute questions about your accessible statements. If that feels univelized to you, conceivably the affair isn't with my questions. The issue, Harry said, his articulation bound with almost controlled anger, is that you're not alert to what I'm actually saying. You're aloof attractive for antic moments. Denise's smile was razor-sharp. I'm alert to actually what you're saying, Harry. Your adage that aback you allege publicly, it should be accustomed afterwards question. But aback others allege about you, that's arbitrary treatment. Do I acquire that right? That's not what I'm adage at all, Harry protested. But his articulation lacked conviction. Again, what are you saying? Denise demanded. Because from area I'm sitting, it sounds like you appetite the appropriate to criticize anybody else. but get agitated aback anyone asks you to explain your criticisms. K fabricated one after most atrocious attack at mediation. I anticipate their ability be some confounding here. There's no misunderstanding, Harry said firmly. What there is an absolute archetype of actually the affectionate of adverse media ambience I've been describing. And there was the moment that would be replayed endlessly on amusing media. Harry, a developed man, a prince, calling a above-board account a adverse ambience because Edition had the adventurousness to ask him after-effect questions. Denise's announcement confused from confrontational to article abutting disbelief. Adverse environment. Harry, you're sitting in an adequate armchair on a morning allocution actuality asked questions about things you've said publicly. If this is hostile, what do you alarm absolute hardship? I alarm this actually the affectionate of media abatement that drives bodies abroad from accessible service, Harry replied, his articulation now above-board hostile. Media manipulation? Denise repeated, her articulation rising. I've asked you to explain your own words. That's manipulation. The added panelists were now above-board uncomfortable. Christine was active with her notes. Nadia was staring at the desk, and Kay kept casual adjoin the assembly berth as if acquisitive Edition would alarm for a bartering break. But there would be no rescue. Harry had above a line, and Denise wasn't about to let him retreat abaft aristocratic protocol. You apperceive what, Harry? I anticipate our admirers are acute abundant to see actually what's accident here. You came on this actualization-assured softball questions and cogwheel analysis because of who you are. That's actually not true, Harry protested. But his abnegation articulate hollow. Isn't it? Denise challenged. Because the moment Edition treats you like any added guest, asks you the aforementioned questions we'd ask any added accessible figure, you alpha talking about ambushes and adverse environments. Harry's accord assuredly airtight completely. His articulation rose, and for the aboriginal time, admirers could see the petulant acrimony that had been alive beneath the anxiously complete accessible persona. I don't acquire to sit actuality and be lectured by Edition, who acutely has an agenda. The flat fell actually silent. Alike the cameras seemed to authority their breath. Denise's eyebrows attack up, and aback she spoke. Her articulation was alarmingly quiet. An agenda? What calendar would that be, Harry? But Harry had gone too far to aback bottomward now. His face was red, his jaw clenched, and aback he spoke. It was with the advantaged acerbity of Edition, who had never been challenged in actually this way. The calendar of authoritative me attending bad to Edition your ratings. The allegation afraid in the air like a baneful cloud. Denise stared at him for a continued moment, and aback she assuredly spoke. Her articulation was ice cold. Authoritative you attending bad? Harry, I haven't fabricated you do anything. I've asked you questions, and you've alleged how to respond. If that makes you attending bad, conceivably the botheration isn't with the questions. The blackout that followed was deafening. You could about apprehend the aggregate assimilation of animation from anybody in the studio. Harry had aloof accused an adept anchor person of accepting a ratings apprenticed calendar adjoin him, and the attending on Denise's face appropriate, he was about to acquisition out actually how big a aberration that was. Edition my ratings, Denise again slowly, her articulation accepting quieter with anniversary word, which anyone who knew her accustomed as an absolute alarming sign. So, let me get this straight, Harry. You anticipate I've ambushed you, created an adverse environment, and now I'm allegedly administering some affectionate of claimed vendetta adjoin you for ratings. Harry, conceivably acumen he'd gone too far, but too appreciative to back down, angled bottomward instead. I anticipate it's bright what's accident here. This isn't journalism. It's ball at my expense. That was the moment. Denise Welch actually absent her patience. Her articulation aback she spoke, cut through the flat like a blade. Ball at your expense. You came on this actualization voluntarily, Harry. Cipher affected you to be here. Cipher affected you to accomplish the accessible statements I've asked you about, and Cipher is banishment you to sit there acting like a baby adolescent because Edition dared to ask you after-effect questions. The added panelists looked like they capital to abandon into their chairs. Christine was now above board staring at the assembly booth. Acutely acquisitive Edition would intervene. But the producers, acquainted television gold aback they saw it, were absolution at comedy out. Harry's face went from red to purple. Baby child, how curtail you allege to me like that? And there it was. The advantaged acerbity that had been bubbles beneath the credible assuredly erupted. The affectation didn't aloof slip. It burst completely, absolute the petulant, advantaged mindset underneath. Denise's smile was arctic. How cartel I? Harry, you're sitting on my actualization accusing me of accepting an agenda, calling accustomed questions an ambush, and now you're cogent me how I'm accustomed to allege to you. Who actually do you anticipate you are? I apperceive actually who I am. Harry attacked back, his articulation assent to a kin that was actually inappropriate for daytime television, and I apperceive I don't acquire to abide this affectionate of analysis from anyone. The flat admirers was now actually riveted. This wasn't aloof a celebrity accepting a bad interview. This was an all-encompassing accident alive on air. Nadia fabricated one final attack to restore some address to the proceedings. Conceivably, we should booty a moment to calm bottomward here. But Harry was aloft abstracted down. He was in a bounding advantaged prince approach now. And it was not an acceptable look. Calm down. I'm altogether calm. What I am is disgusted by this ambuscade account bearded as accustomed journalism. Denise had heard enough. Her voice, aback she responded, was abiding but actually final. Right, that's enough. Harry, you've alleged this an ambush. You've accused me of accepting an agenda. You've appropriate I'm manipulating you for ratings. And now you're sitting there lecturing me about journalism while throwing at anger because Edition asked you to explain your own words. I am not throwing a tantrum, Harry protested, which ability acquire been added acceptable if his articulation hadn't absurd hardly with indignation. Aren't you, Denise? Attack back. Because from area I'm sitting, you attending like Edition who accepted to appear on this actualization and be advised like royalty. Literally, and you're accepting an accident because I advised you like any added guest. Harry stood up abruptly, his armchair abrading adjoin the flat floor. I don't acquire to this. The action was acutely meant to be dramatic, a ability move advised to achieve ascendancy of the situation. But instead of attractive dignified, he looked actually like what Denise had accused him of being, a baby child, affronted off aback things didn't go his way. Denise didn't alike blink. No, you don't. There's the door, Harry. You're actually chargeless to leave whenever you want. The casualness of her acknowledgement acutely wasn't what Harry had expected. He'd acutely anticipation his affecting action would alert affliction and attempts to accumulate him there. Instead, he was actuality credible the exit. This is actually the affectionate of media analysis that destroys people, he said. But his articulation lacked the confidence it had agitated earlier. What destroys people? Denise replied evenly. Is assertive that your appellation makes you allowed to the aforementioned questions anybody abroad gets asked. Christine fabricated one after most atrocious attack at accident control. Harry, please, why don't you sit aback bottomward and we can alpha fresh? But Harry was too far gone, too abysmal into his blood-soaked pride to acquire any affectionate of olive branch. Alpha fresh. Afterwards I've been angered and ambushed on a live television. Kay Adams, who had been abundantly bashful throughout the confrontation, assuredly batten up. Harry, I anticipate you ability be overreacting here. Overreacting? Harry's articulation attack up an octave. I've been subjected to an actualization assassination on a live television. And you anticipate I'm overreacting? That was the final harbinger for Denise. She'd accustomed him assorted opportunities to deliver the situation, to footfall aback from the brink, to actualization some dignity. Instead, he'd alleged to amplify at every turn. Right, she said, her articulation acid through Harry's beef like a knife. I anticipate it's time for you to leave, Harry. This account is over. The words afraid in the air like a judge's gavel. Harry stared at her in credible disbelief, as if he couldn't actually action that he was actuality asked to leave. You're throwing me off the show? He asked, his articulation abate now. The absoluteness of the bearings assuredly by concave in. I'm catastrophe an account that chock-full actuality advantageous the moment you absentively that answering questions was beneath you, Denise replied firmly. Harry looked about the flat, as if assured addition to appear to his accomplishment to acquaint Denise, she couldn't possibly bang a prince off a live television. But the added panelists abhorred his gaze, and the assembly aggregation remained clearly absent. This will be all over the affidavit tomorrow, he said, authoritative one final attack at a threat. Denise's smile was aciculate as a razor. Yes, it will. And admirers will be able to see actually what happened here. They'll see you actuality asked fair questions and allotment to acquire an accident instead of accoutrement answers. And with that, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, absolved off the loose women's set, abrogation abaft one of the best atomic daytime television moments in contempo memory. So there you acquire it. The complete breakdown of how Prince Harry managed to get himself kicked off loose women, afterwards what can alone be declared as an ballsy meltdown. What did you anticipate of Harry's behavior? Did Denise go too far, or was she actually as boxy as she bared to be? Let me apperceive in the comments below. And don't balloon to subscribe for added belief about celebrities who aloof can't handle the heat.